All right, good morning, everybody. Kind of an off morning. I'm gonna just kind of take it easy this morning. We'll just chit chat a little bit. So see who pops in. And hey, the line's open for those of you who might want to call in on the for those of you who have my personal number. You can feel free to call in this morning. I'm not running the BFM call-in number, but my phone is connected. If y'all want to pop in and chit-chat this morning, so let's do this. And good morning, everybody. Ooh, I need to plug in my headphones so that I can tell whether or not I'm talking. Y'all, the way this setup works, for those of you that know me, I am stone deaf without my hearing aids. This is a pretty decent set of studio headphones that get really loud, or at least I suspect they get really loud because I can hear them, and I saw Cameron put them on by accident once. Didn't work out for him. Trish says, good morning, it's warming up here. We're finally in double digits. Hey, you know what? We're about 17 degrees. Oh no, we're 15 degrees here right now. Got my phone set up right there, and yeah, it's y'all can tell it's cold outside when Fat Boy shows up to the show in the Jedi robe. So this morning I've got the show set up as just a generic good morning. We'll look at a couple of news articles, some stuff going on Twitter and whatnot. But frankly, what happened was there's this thing, the Vet Buds breakfast. Danny says there was an inside smoke this morning. I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you're cracking a joke about my house, I don't smoke in the house. But I did step just right outside the basement door to burn one a minute ago. Anyway, yeah, so got my Jedi robes on because, y'all, it's brisk out there. So I was thinking about doing the Vet Buds meeting breakfast thing this morning. But y'all, it's at 7 o'clock, and it's on the other side of Atlanta from where it's like an hour and 15 minutes drive for me, and it's cold. And I got up this morning and said, nope, I don't wanna. Ugh. Oh, and nope, Pitt, Danny, I don't make it. It could be -30, and I'd just throw on my good LL Bean jacket and step out to smoke. I don't play around with. Okay, so you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So I shot a house yesterday. I was out doing some real estate photography yesterday, and long time ago, when I was in my early 20s, I lived in this commune house situation with some buddies. There were 5 adults in the house, and we were in Savannah. We rented a pretty nice little ranch style house, about a walking distance to Oglethorpe Mall. And back then, we did smoke in that house, right? I would smoke at my desk working on the computer. We'd sit around the big kitchen table and drink coffee and talk and play cards and smoke cigarettes. And Wolfgang, my 6.5-foot ball python, one of the ball python at about the max size that they grow to. He'd be loose on the table, and he'd squirm around, and he'd cozy up to our coffee cups. You had to fight him to get your coffee cup back. And we would smoke in that house. After I moved out of there, when I enlisted and went on, it bothered me when they first got rid of smoking sections in Georgia. And then I enlisted, went to California. Of course, there's no smoking sections there except for the occasional patio dining situation. And then I ended up in Texas for a while, where they did still have smoking sections. And I became very much of two minds on that. I like going into a joint like an IHOP or a Waffle House and, being able to smoke at the table. But that's, hanging out, having conversations for a long time, late at night, nothing I do anymore. I'm not pulling all-nighters at the Waffle House talking about politics and philosophy anymore. But I find that I definitely prefer the non-smoking section or the non-smoking restaurant. And I'd rather just step outside and have my cigarette. And likewise at home. So yesterday I was doing some real estate photography, and I had a vacant house to shoot first thing in the morning. And I get over there and I let myself in, and it's this dumpy, ragged trailer. Not even a double wide, just a trailer home, mobile home. And it struck me like they had moved out of the house. There was no furniture left except for a couple of mattresses flipped up against the walls. And there were cigarette butts all over the floor. And in the toilets, and in the bathtubs, and in the sinks. Like I said, when we had the commune in Savannah, we smoked in the house, but y'all, you're just throwing cigarette butts on the floor where you live? In the toilet, I can maybe see flushing one down the toilet, but just throwing them in the toilet bowl and leaving them there? I don't get it. I just do not get it. So, let's talk about a little bit of news, and I don't know how far down the rabbit hole I'm willing to go on this right now because I just don't know enough, but trending right now on Twitter is some stuff about Governor Kemp relative to the Fani Willis situation. So basically, and I don't know what's going on Twitter. Right now, I'm gonna have to be real careful. I'm not gonna be able to just scroll for you because, like, you look up Kemp, and one of the first things that comes up. In fact, the first two things that come up are just straight up pornography. I mean, literally. And it's, yeah. I don't mean that it's generally offensive material. No, it's actual pornography. So, gonna have to be real careful about scrolling past that. In fact, here's the article that I'd like to talk about, and literally the thing above it is an hour and a half of porno. It just, that's one of those things that, because of what I do and in doing the searches for the material involved in political analysis, strategic analysis, and all that to prepare the show, there are no filters on this machine. Because if I put in filters to filter out offensive content, okay, that saves me from seeing some gross adult activity and adult behavior, but it also flags things like terrorist activity, mass shooting attacks, hell, political rallies where people intimate messages that relate to, it'll filter out things like the a few months ago we talked about one of the child-friendly drag shows that happened at the strip bar in Texas with the big sign on. So, no, we're not. There's nothing sexual about this. And there's a big sign on the wall, big flag on the wall that says it's not going to lick itself, right? Well, I gotta get that stuff so that I can cover it and talk about that material. Okay, Pitt Danny says Michael Moore trending on X. It's the U.S. Attorney Michael Moore appointed by Obama asking for Fani Willis removal. The other Michael Moore is also trending. They're trending kind of in tandem there, Danny, because people have brought up the old Michael Moore. Let me see. I think I've actually got that one pulled. Or no, I did have that one pulled up. But people are bringing up the old Michael Moore prediction from 2016. And let's take a look at that real quick. And then I'll talk about Trump, about Kemp and Davos. So many of you probably remember, and I talked about this when it happened. Let's see if we can.
They don't necessarily like him that much, and they don't necessarily agree with him. They're not racist and rednecks, they're actually pretty decent people. And so I wanted to sort of, after talking to a number of them, I wanted to write this. And Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them. It was an amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the Brexit states. You live here in Ohio, you know what I'm...
Right, and he just referred to them as the Brexit states. So there's, and I'll play a little bit more of this, we'll talk about it some more, because Michael Moore actually made some excellent points in this particular speech. And the thing that people are missing is there are community notes popping up on this video where the community note says people are misattributing the statements of Michael Moore to suggest that he was supporting Donald Trump. Now, he was very clear in this. He still hated Donald Trump because Donald Trump is a non-communist. Right? Make no mistake, Michael Moore is a professional communist. And even in that right there, he didn't say that when Trump said, hey, Ford, if you move your plant to Mexico, I'll put a 35% tariff on it and nobody will buy your cars. Right, he said that, and then he didn't say, and that was music to my ears, or that was music to our ears. No, he said that was music to the ears of other people, and specific other people. those people most likely to be hurt by Ford moving a plant. But this is very much like Biden and the Democrat current talking point, where they keep talking about our democracy, right? Because it's our democracy versus those extreme MAGA right-wing nut jobs, right? If you're watching this show right now, when Biden says our democracy, he doesn't mean his and yours. He doesn't mean your democracy. You're not included in that. You're not a part of that. That's very much the same linguistic trick that Michael Moore's playing here. It was music to the ears of those other rubes. And he even had his little diatribe at the beginning. These aren't, where he basically, I'll paraphrase, he basically said, these aren't bad people, these aren't evil people, they're just stupid people. They're poor, uneducated bums that work a day and they don't know anything about anything. So they just think something sounds good. Right? And that, of course, is coming from, a pro-socialized medicine guy who went and did a documentary in Cuba about how great their socialized medical system is. It's like, what's the Cuban infant mortality rate, Michael? How long's the waiting line? Are you guaranteed that you can have the medical care that you need? No, you're not. Right? It's those people. It's not us. It's not. Oh no. Those guys with the funny red hats. They're not a part of it. It's not their democracy. It's our democracy. It's not your democracy. Fuck you. It's our democracy. Right? And so this video is being shown again, and here we'll play a little bit more of it.
Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant, because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
And he's right about that. A large part of the appeal of electing Donald Trump in 2016 was the idea that you were basically cutting the bull loose in the china shop, right? You're saying, okay, here's our monster that's going to come and wreak havoc on your terrible system, right? And then he says that last bit.
Throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
That stole their lives from them. See, there it is again. Stole their lives from them. You're right, Michael. You're right. The tax system did steal their lives from them. Those of you who are big Trump supporting guys, or I'm sorry, those of you who are not the big Trump supporters, right? You look at the situation, and the system didn't steal anything from you. The system robs at gunpoint through taxation from every productive member. Right? We take you back to your first paycheck. I had a somewhat different experience than many of you may have had with your first paycheck. I'm sure you all had some variation, some similar experience to this, where you got your first job as a teenager and the first payday's coming up, and a relative, probably your dad, right, or your grandfather or an uncle, says, it's about to happen. You're about to become a conservative because you're going to get that paycheck and you're going to see the taxes that are deducted from your check. You're going to see that payroll withholding tax on there. You're going to get a lot less money than you expected to make. And it's going to piss you off. my somewhat different take on that at that age was my dad actually told me something to that effect. And I said, oh no, I'm already furious at the idea. I don't need to see it. I already know that as soon as I get my paycheck, that before I even get my paycheck and take it to the bank, some son of a bitch with a gun has stuck his hand in my pocket. Right? Money is fungible. The time value of money, that theory, that functional theory of currency flow and the time value of money, means that when you're looking at payroll withholding taxes, they didn't take that money out of your paycheck. They took it out of your pocket before you ever got the check. They took it directly from your pocket. Gave you a little squeeze on your ass and robbed you. So that's why Michael Moore is trending this morning. Now, I'm gonna the last 10 minutes I'm gonna spend on Brian Kemp. I was pretty hard on Brian Kemp in his last re-election bid, and primarily because I thought that after the 2020 election, he didn't just not do enough to, because he refused to do the special session. He refused to pursue any investigation. And of course, I was absolutely infuriated when he deployed the GBI to deal with the McMichaels in what was just a patent miscarriage of justice, just grotesque. Not just a grotesque miscarriage of justice, but a total capitulation to the demands of the BLM terrorists. I've been pretty hard on Kemp since then, and I've harbored, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but I've harbored some suspicion of Kemp's corruption following the incident where his daughter's boyfriend was just happened to blow up in a car at a surprisingly convenient time. An incident which, I might add, was followed by no significant investigation. There was no reporting after the fact. They just... we've seen the video. We covered it on this show. I showed you the video. And when we watched that video, we did the deep analysis on the video footage that we had available to us. We had video from several angles of the car exploding. Somebody shot it on there was a CCTV camera nearby. Somebody shot it on a cell phone. We had 2 or 3 good angles on it. And I said then, and I still maintain, y'all, speaking as someone who has seen IEDs used to destroy armored vehicles in active combat, that was a fucking car bomb. A bomb was used to murder that young man. And after that happened, all of a sudden, Brian Kemp is he's just Biden's man. He refused to take significant action in the wake of what was obvious corruption and fraud in the 2020 election. Refused to take any action at all against Raffensperger for his clear involvement in it, with the deal that Raffensperger signed to basically subvert the legislative process, capitulate to Democrat demands, and alter Georgia election law in favor of Democrat ballot harvesting. And now we look at this case with Fani Willis. Fani Willis offered a lesser fee to experienced prosecutors who actually have the professional experience in the kind of RICO cases and the like. offered a lesser fee to them than she did to who we now know to be her lover, who has met multiple times with the White House, right? The prosecutor, what's his name? Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade. This prosecutor has met multiple times with the Biden administration at the White House, billed us for that time meeting with the administration, and is the head prosecutor who has never tried a felony case, let alone a RICO case, let alone probably what amounts to be the largest RICO case in history. And he's been paid over $1 million by the woman that he happens to be sleeping with. If I understand it correctly, he left his wife for her, and that, y'all, I mean, this, and, you know, the hot take from the lefties is, well, why do you care about what people do with their personal lives? I seem to remember a lot of y'all getting hot under the collar about the statement, I could grab them by the pussy. I seem to remember a lot of you getting hot under the collar about the idea that Donald Trump had consensual intercourse with Stormy Daniels. A claim, by the way, which he still denies and she rescinded. Right? And that, like, I won't relitigate that one too much, but I find that one hilarious because you've seen pictures of Trump. You've seen pictures of Trump's wives. You've seen pictures of Trump's girlfriends. Trump has a type. Stormy fits it. When somebody makes the statement, Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels, I'm just like, okay. And Grimace is purple. No shit. Right? But Trump still denies that it happened, and Stormy has come out and said publicly, I lied about the whole thing. But the same people who were saying, well, Fanny's personal life is no one else's business. Stormy Daniels was not prosecuting anybody, held no political power, accrued no governmental authority. Right? That's nobody's business. The man had some sex. That's nobody's business. But giving preferential treatment attached to taxpayer dollars to a person who is unqualified for the job for which they were hired, coupled with the fact that you're having a physical affair, that is corruption. That's naked corruption, literally and metaphorically, right? So, and Pitt Danny says the divorce is ongoing, so it's even messier than I thought it was. And now Kemp is, instead of dealing with this, which, okay, and let me back up just a little bit. Fani Willis's prosecution of Donald Trump alleges that Trump defrauded the American people by knowingly and intentionally lying about the existence of corruption and fraud in the 2020 election. So, their entire case, they unnecessarily made intent an element of the accusation. Because the case rests on, did Trump know that there wasn't any fraud, or at least believe that there wasn't any fraud? Did Trump sincerely hold the belief that he legitimately lost the 2020 election? As a matter of law and fact, these are extremely relevant questions. It could be the case that 2020 was the anomalous never before seen election wherein absolutely no fraud occurred whatsoever. Right? In every election, fraud occurs. Every single one without exception. Some unintentional, some intentional. Right? Intent is not always necessarily an element of the crime. When you're talking about election fraud, some of it can be as simple as a person moved and didn't realize that the ballot they were casting was a ballot for a jurisdiction they no longer belong to. Right? You know, you're a Georgia resident, you move to Michigan. Mail gets forwarded from your old address. You get a ballot and just aren't paying attention. Right? Now, this is a stretch. This is a stretch, but I'm giving some people the benefit of the doubt here. You get a ballot. You pay close enough attention to recognize that it's a ballot, but not close enough attention to understand what jurisdiction it's from, what voting jurisdiction it's from. You open it up. It's a ballot for the general election, so it looks pretty much the same across the country. And you say, oh, yeah, I'm going to cast my vote for Donald Trump here in Michigan. And I didn't read anything else. I just checked the box and signed my name and shipped it off. Now you have committed unintentional voter fraud. You've shipped your ticket, and you didn't realize that the one that you filled out was for Georgia and not Michigan because you weren't paying attention. And then there's the other guys who moved to Georgia and rented a house just long enough to vote in Georgia. That's documented. That's proved. That's a thing that happened. That's not a theory that we have. That's something that we've seen the evidence of. It occurred, right? But give them the benefit of the doubt for just a moment, for the sake of argument, for the legal case, that 2020 was the one election where no fraud at all, even accidental or unintentional, happened. That still doesn't guarantee that Donald Trump sincerely believes that to be the case. That could be the fact of the matter. And Donald Trump could sincerely believe it to be true. There are people out there right now who sincerely believe that a man can give birth to a baby. They sincerely believe that to be the case. They are clearly and obviously factually wrong. But if that were the question of intent and motive, then their sincerely held belief is the relevant issue. So for Fannie's case to have any merit at all, they have to prove that Donald Trump personally held an opinion and a sincerely held belief, which he has on multivariant occasions expressed the opposite of. No reasonable, intelligent person can possibly hold the rational, sincere belief that Donald Trump sincerely believed, even if his beliefs have changed in the face of evidence, which I doubt strongly because the evidence just isn't there. Even if his beliefs have changed since 2020, that he sincerely believed that the election was stolen from him at the time, that he sincerely believed that massive fraud changed the outcome, is beyond a reasonable doubt. There is no reasonable person who can believe that Donald Trump believed he lost the 2020 election. You might be able to make the case that he believes now that he lost it legitimately, and that still doesn't qualify, given that the allegation refers to actions in the past. His state of mind at that point is the relevant question. And now that we've seen overwhelming evidence of significant fraud in Fulton County alone, you don't even have a fact pattern to fall back on, Fani Willis. So you have a corrupt DA who ran on the position that she would prosecute Donald Trump for something, wound up and bound up in a corrupt in a corrupt activity related to that process, wherein the Biden administration is now implicated through the receipts for the invoices from Nathan Wade for meeting with the administration. No reasonable person can look at that fact pattern and come to any conclusion other than that Wade is coordinating with the White House on the prosecution of Donald Trump. A reasonable person might be swayed to believe that he was meeting with the White House for some reason other than colluding and coordinating on the prosecution of Donald Trump, except that we have the receipts, we have the invoices that he met with them for the purpose of discussing the Trump case. When I say for the purpose, I mean the invoices are billed to that prosecution. Right? It's not just a generic invoice, hey, I showed up and did some stuff. It's, hey, I showed up and did some stuff, and you need to pay the people that are doing the prosecution to pay me. Right? You know, like, example, you might hire me as an outside contractor to come to your house and do some stuff. And some stuff might be, I rake your yard for $100 or something. And you just write Christopher Lowry a check. Okay. Christopher Lowry came to your house, did some stuff. Did some work, whatever. But if I show up to your house and I show up to your house to do some stuff and you write a check to East Atlanta Video, nobody's going to assume I was there to wash dishes. It would be an unreasonable conclusion to draw from the fact pattern. So when a prosecutor from Georgia shows up to have a conversation with the Biden administration, and then you write a check to that entity, no, not the Biden administration. The invoice was written for the meeting at the Biden administration, and the invoice is sent to clarify, in case I muddied this up. The invoice goes to the Georgia taxpayer. We paid him for 4 hours at $500 an hour twice. That's how that works. And Kemp is now opposed. Kemp is fighting back against criminal investigations of Fani Willis's clearly criminal activity. It is ironic that what Fani Willis is prosecuting is a RICO case, which she's prosecuting backwards. Okay. The point to a RICO case is to you catch a bag man on the street, you catch a bookie, and you use his association with known criminals for whom you haven't sufficient evidence to prosecute so that you can climb the chain and wrap up everybody, including the top guy. What Fani Willis is doing is she's taking that RICO idea and flipping it on its head. Moss says, I'll pay you $100 to rake my yard. Yeah. As much as I love my mother, and as much as I'd be thrilled to help y'all and rake that yard, that's 22 acres is a hell of a lot of yard for $100. 23 acres. It's a shitload of yard. Sorry, Ma. That's why I have kids. Hey, Jen joined us this morning. Good morning, sunshine. So Kemp is refusing to proceed with the criminal referral on Fannie Willis. And okay, so my mother distracted me with a joke about money. The way that Fannie Willis's RICO prosecution is backwards is she's starting at the top and trying to use the top to wrap up everybody under it. And that goes further than you can imagine, because there are moves now to try and initiate investigation on anyone who has, and I quote, interacted positively with Donald Trump's social media postings. That means if you've ever liked or shared or commented on a Donald Trump tweet. Psychotic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Kemp going to visit the WEF, the World Economic Forum, that by itself is pretty scary for our elected officials to be hobnobbing over there with Klaus Schwab and George Soros. You know, I live in Conyers, Georgia right now, where they're cranking out these little cracker box shithole apartment complexes everywhere because you will eat the bugs and live in the pods. And it's time to move, y'all. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.